This episode of Marijuana Today Daily is brought to you by our friends over at Mason Jar Event Group, which we used here at MJ Today Media back in November to help pull off our big Las Vegas show. So I'm speaking from personal experience here when I tell you that Mason Jar Event Group and its founder and leader Kendall Norris are awesome. Kendall and her team at Mason Jar put on regular events throughout the year that you just got to experience for yourself. They mix fun and social and class and craft all together in their shows and events. The next Mason Jar Event Group is coming up on April 20th with their Yoga with a View cannabis pairing brunch and marketplace, which is taking place in the Space Annex Gallery in Denver, Colorado. And if you or your company needs a great event planner to oversee your own cool function, then you got to get in touch with Kendall and talk about working with Mason Jar. You can learn more about all the cool events that Mason Jar Event Group runs and how you can tap them to give your own special day a kick of awesome over at masonjareventgroup.com. That's masonjareventgroup.com. Thanks to Kendall and her team at Mason Jar for the support and all the good work they do for our industry. Good morning, Marijuana Nation. It's Wednesday, January 23rd, 2019, and you're tuned into episode 650 of Marijuana Today Daily. I'm your host, Shay Gunther, and I'll be walking you through today's marijuana news and headlines. As always, we have a full and busy day of cannabis news in our hands, so let's jump right into it. Our top story today kicks off in a country that doesn't land in our headlines very often. That's Switzerland, where some of the world's most powerful people are meeting this week at the World Economic Forum in the mountainous village of Davos. Among them this year, for the first time, is a group of marijuana-focused entrepreneurs, policymakers, and power brokers who are gathering together at an event that's being called the Cannabis Conclave. Former Israeli Prime Minister Ehud Barak is set to address the group, which will include Bruce Linton, CEO of Canopy Growth Corporation, as well as Kevin Murphy, CEO of Acreage Holdings, which made the news yesterday for their rejected Super Bowl ad. Open up the Financial Times for the full read on this one. We jump back to the States for story number 2, landing in Massachusetts, where late last week, a formal petition was filed with the state's Cannabis Control Commission asking that it take authority over the so-called community host agreements that are required in the state for legal cannabis businesses to operate. Regular listeners should well remember this long-running storyline with Massachusetts towns and cities being criticized for requiring that marijuana businesses give up more revenue for longer periods of time than is allowed by state law. An independent review of Massachusetts community host agreements found that nearly 70% of them require more of legal cannabis businesses than is allowed. Those deals usually contain lump sum fees as well as a percentage share of revenue spread out over a number of years. Mass Live is reporting that on Friday, advocates involved with the Massachusetts Grower Advisory Council as well as Mass Can Normal filed a petition asking that the Control Commission be given oversight power of those community host agreements. You might remember recent news where the commission actually asked the state legislature for that power. Now that the petition has been filed, commission members have 30 days to formally respond, so we'll probably be checking back up on this one. Sports Illustrated has our third top story today with one that should make you shake your head in exasperation. Yesterday, the United States Anti-Doping Agency announced that 19-year-old professional skateboarder Cory Juneau was suspended last year for 6 months because he failed a drug test for THC. That matters because skateboarding is now being introduced into the Olympics, where it will debut in 2020. I chalk this one right up there as being as stupid as drug testing any athlete for cannabis, but skateboarding, it's like snowboarding. There are a lot of people who practice the sport and consume cannabis, and if you're going to start weeding out the pro marijuana skaters, you're not going to have many left behind. Those are our top stories for today. Aside from Marijuana Today Daily Headlines Blitz. Before we blitz out on headlines, let's quickly thank our sponsor, Mason Jar Event Group, which specializes in throwing very cool, unique, and classy cannabis events and functions. The Mason Jar Event Group is there to help your own corporate event be as awesome as possible and puts on their own series of marijuana-related happenings over the course of the year, with their next show coming up on April 20th at the Space Annex Gallery in Denver, Colorado, where they'll be holding their Yoga with a View cannabis pairing brunch and marketplace. You can pop over to masonjareventgroup.com to learn more about that and to find out how you can have Kendall and her team of planning pros help bring your own party or special meeting to life. That's masonjareventgroup.com. All right, time for the blitz. The Alabama Department of Agriculture and Industries is now accepting applications to cultivate industrial hemp as part of a pilot program being run by the state following the passage of a bill in 2016 lifting a ban on the practice. The passage of last year's 2018 Farm Bill, which lifts the federal laws making industrial hemp illegal, certainly didn't hurt any. If you're in Alabama and want to get into the industrial hemp game, you have until February 22nd to get your application in. Alabama.com has a link to the state's website where you can learn more and apply. As always, we have all the news we cover linked to on our website at mjtodaydaily.com and on our Twitter account at mjtodaydaily. Ohio-based company Green Growth Brands just announced the details for a takeover bid it is launching for Canadian licensed marijuana company Aphria. This one has lots of numbers and details, best read in full. Open up new cannabis ventures to dive in. A new poll just released yesterday by researchers at Boston University finds that a majority of polled mayors of U.S. cities support the legalization of adult use marijuana where they live. According to the results, a full 53% of surveyed mayors agree that marijuana should be taxed and regulated in their towns or cities, with just 35% being opposed. Those numbers get a little more interesting once you break them down along partisan lines, as 67% of Republican mayors don't want legal cannabis in their towns, while 62% of Democrats do. While the appeal of cannabis can be said to be nonpartisan when it comes to political leaders, Republicans as a whole remain stuck in their regression. Canadian marijuana company Tilray is acquiring the cultivation company Natura Natural Holdings in a deal that's worth $35 to $70 million Canadian. The acquisition, once closed, could boost Tilray's production capacity by as much as 150,000 pounds of cannabis flower per year. Keeping pegged to Canada for a headline, we have CBC News with a story about the potential length of the current market disruption in Canada being caused by shaky supply and huge demand following October's adult use legalization switchover. One complicating factor seen by industry watchers as a potential hiccup this year is the adoption of edibles as a legal product, which will drive demand on cultivators even higher than it currently is. Chuck Rafiki, CEO of Canadian marijuana firm Auxley, told CBC News that he thinks things could be tumultuous in Canadian cannabis for at least 3 years. Marijuana Business Daily keeps us partially up in Canada with a helpful chart from Viridian Capital Advisors showing the growth last year in the number of international marijuana industry merger and acquisition deals broken down in terms of U.S. companies, Canadian companies, and everyone else. The overall number of global M&A deals last year, 207, was way up over 2017's 81 total deals, and last year saw about an even parity between those taking place in the US and those in Canada. Not a bad one to also read today. And finally, for this fine Wednesday, the California Growers Association has dropped the lawsuit it filed last year against the state of California over how it is giving out cannabis cultivation licenses, namely that large providers are able to sneak into the system using a regulatory loophole, allowing them to aggregate multiple smaller licenses together. As John Schroyer is reporting, the lawsuit was never really able to gain any traction last year, and the Growers Association says it would rather drop the case entirely to clear up any potential conflict ahead of engaging with newly elected Governor Gavin Newsom. Those are the headlines and news for the day. I'll be back with you again tomorrow morning with another information-packed episode of Marijuana Today Daily. But in the meantime, if you have any stories to share or feedback to give, zip us an email to headlines@mjtodaydaily.com. And while you're clicking around the interwebs, swing over to our Twitter account at mjtodaydaily and visit our website at mjtodaydaily.com to find links to all the news we cover. Thanks to our sponsor, Mason Jar Event Group, and to all of our awesome patron listeners for the support that makes this show possible. To join the illustrious ranks of the patron listeners yourself, swing over to our website at mjtodaydaily.com and click on that big blue button at the top of the page that says Become a Patron. I'm your host, Shay Gunther. Thanks for tuning in and starting your day with marijuana today.
One take, Shay. One take.